Well, it was a big change of fortunes since former Texas Governor Rick Perry announced his second presidential campaign. Reports out this week indicate Perry no longer paying his campaign staff. It was even on the front page of today's Austin American-Statesman. But he says he's still in the race and believes he'll be competitive in the early states, Iowa, New Hampshire, and South Carolina. Now, that's just one of the storylines in the ever-changing 2016 presidential race as we take a closer look in today's Point-Counterpoint. We're joined by Republican strategist Matt Makowiak, president of Potomac Strategy, and Democrat Edward Espinoza, executive director of Progress Texas. And Matt, let's go ahead and start with you. How can Perry be out of money this early in the race, and how can he stay in?
Yeah, it's certainly early. Keep in mind, in the first 6 weeks of his campaign 4 years ago, he raised $17 million. In the first 6 months of this campaign, he raised $1 million. You can go through $1 million pretty quickly on a presidential campaign. Now, his super PAC raised $17 million, still has $14 to $15 million left. So he's going to have to live off the land. He's going to have, stay in the homes of volunteers and have volunteers drive him around, no frills. He needs to go move to Iowa, run a 99-county tour, and try to finish in the top 3 in Iowa. If he can do that, I think he can get some oxygen back to his campaign, but it's going to be hard because he's low in the polls and he's not going to be on the primetime debate stages as the campaign goes forward.
Ed, let's turn to you. Why do you think Perry is struggling financially?
Yeah, I agree with Matt. Running a presidential campaign is much different than running a statewide campaign in Texas. Structurally, you have to deal with some things that are very different. You have campaign finance limits. Texas doesn't have campaign finance limits. And what's different here is Perry has to compete against 16 other candidates. The Texas Tribune reported that many of these candidates are coming to Texas to raise money from a lot of the people that Perry has raised money from in the past. So those two hurdles present a barrier for him, and not paying your staff this early in the campaign, not a good sign. Very few campaigns recover from it.
Well, a Rasmussen poll released yesterday showed Donald Trump leading among likely Republican voters with 17%. That's compared to Florida Senator Marco Rubio and former Florida Governor Jeb Bush, both with 10%. Texas Senator Ted Cruz getting a big bump after last week's debate. He's up to 7%. Now, Ed, let's start with you this time. Trump's lead was bigger before last Thursday's debate. What do you think accounts for that?
Well, I think statistically it's about the same as it was, but in a crowded field, you're going to see people coalesce around a name that they know and one who speaks their language. And in this case, it happens to be Donald Trump. As for Ted Cruz, he did get a slight bump, but he didn't talk very much during the campaign. So kind of leads to the question, do people like him more when he talks less? I guess so.
Well, Matt, do you think Trump can remain the front runner?
Yeah, I mean, this is interesting because the Rasmussen poll does show him down a bit from before the debate. On the other hand, CNN put a poll out today that showed him in a strong position in Iowa, in first place with 23%. I think Ben Carson in second at 13%. Look, Donald Trump has a high floor and a low ceiling. He's going to remain probably 15% or above and probably 25% or below. For the next few months, we're kind of in the summer of Trump right now. But as the debates go forward, he's going to have to provide more specifics, and he's going to get called out for things he said in the past. And if he can weather that storm, he can still be a serious candidate for president.
Well, today, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton agreed to give her personal email server to the Justice Department. The Associated Press is reporting it was used from her home near New York City, and there are questions whether any classified information was improperly sent or stored on that device. Ed, we know this is a big issue for the Republicans, but what do her fellow Democrats think about the private email server?
As somebody who has worked in Washington, D.C. and has worked in the halls of government there, I know that using a government handheld device is not all it's cracked up to be. You can't get personal email on it. You can't get multiple accounts on it. At least you weren't able to in the years that I was there in 2009 to 2011. So having a separate server, I think, was a practical matter for her. As to what we find out on it, well, honestly, I don't know that whether she turned it over and didn't turn it over, if it was ever going to not be an issue for Republicans. They chose to latch on to this and make this their next Benghazi. They want to make it Emailgate, and that's what they're going to do no matter what she does.
All right, Ed. Matt, in a one-word answer, is this going to help Republicans? Would they rather face Clinton or someone else?
I think we'd rather face Hillary. I think she's a weak candidate. This is a big problem. It's going to keep getting bigger.
Matt and Ed, we thank you so much for this edition of Point Counterpoint. We appreciate you joining us.
Thanks.
Thanks.